Hi there, this is a spoiler review of Disclosure Day, the last movie of this Steven Spielberg. So I'll be talking about the details. So if you haven't watched the movie, just go watch it, or else I'll be ruining the movie for you. So I'll be starting with some points that I liked, and then later on I'll be talking about some criticisms that I have towards this movie. So starting with the first point, I think that which is the main focus of the movie, the communication between human beings and themselves, between communication of humanity or humans and other species in the universe. Basically, we have two great actors in here, Josh O'Connor and Emily Blunt. Each one of them represents a language. Josh O'Connor represents the language of mathematics and of logic. On the other hand, we have Emily Blunt, which represents humanity and everything that pertains to reading human beings and communicating the one with each other. She basically looks at your eyes and is capable of reading everything that regards your life, your family history, your family members. She even takes shape, the shape of one of your family members, your wife, your child, and so forth. So she's capable at reading you, communicating with you, just by looking at your eyes. Between the two of them, we know that the most troublesome language is the one that Emily Blunt relies on, because whenever we have to deal with each other as human beings, ambiguity is always in the way of communicating the one with each other, and misunderstandings, of course. Not only because we speak different languages and different idioms, but also because people have different backgrounds, different cultures, and different upbringings. That's why. On the other hand, the easiest language is the mathematics one, or the logic one. So the one that's represented by Josh O'Connor, because it's something that it's more universal. We can agree on 1 + 1 = 2. This is something that we can all agree on. Nobody will fight you on this concept. It's a fact. Nobody can fight you on the concept of gravity. Like, if I don't know, make sure that the pencil would fall on the pavement or on the floor, it will fall eventually, because there's something that is called gravity. Unless you are in your dreams and you are asleep, or you are mad, or you are a conspiracy theorist. But aside from these people, you'll be agreeing. Every single person on this planet will be agreeing on this concept. But the languages that we use as human beings, even if we speak the same language, will carry with themselves a lot of ambiguities and miscomprehensions, unfortunately. And if we make a comparison between our grandfathers and grandmothers and the previous generations and actual Generation Z, starting maybe with the millennials or with our fathers and mothers, people can't deliver a message without being misunderstood. So they'll have to clarify themselves every single time. They'll have to dot the I's and cross the T's, because people are always prone to anger and love to misquote you, love misunderstandings, especially now with social media. They seem to be quite imbeciles whenever human beings interact with them or speak to them. They seem to capture every single thing that is shady in your phrasing or in the way you communicate, with comparison to people and how they used to speak back in there. If you look at the previous generations and our grandfather, as I said, they just looked at your eyes and knew everything about you. Wives and partners just used to speak with each other without even uttering any single word. Why? Because they loved each other, because they knew each other. Because as human beings, I think we have a universal language, the body language one. But nowadays, nobody can understand nobody. And that is actually an issue. It is one of the most underrated themes or issues that nobody is willing to talk about, actually. The communication between human beings is at risk, and that's actually because of social media, because of Twitter specifically, and the way people misquote each other and do quotes on every single post or comment that you do. They love, as I said before, finding misunderstandings. On the other hand, since I've talked about this first point, since I've been talking about communication, we have to talk about humanity in itself and the way we perceive each other, the way we hate each other. Why? Because each one of us thinks that he has the absolute truth, and any other truth is not that relevant. It's not actually the truth. It's a partial truth. It's a fake one. If you look at Colin Firth or Coleman Domingo, both of them, I think they are wrong, or both of them are evil, even though Coleman Domingo is somewhat of a good person maybe in here. And this is one of the criticisms that I have towards the script itself, because Coleman Domingo is in the same boat as with Colin Firth. Both of them are exploiting the way they see reality and exploiting their truth, as we can call it. Colin Firth thinks, since he has this organization that collaborates, which is something like the CIA, so he doesn't give a flying F about anything. Why? Because I'm somewhat of a government, of another government. and I can do whatever I want. Why? Because I have the power to do so. I have the power to keep and relate the truth. I have, as a power, to manipulate the truth. I can control anything. We can attack human beings or other governments through, cyber attacks. We can manipulate everything on social media. I can do that. I will do it. Just as with Men in Black, just as Agent K once said to Will Smith, to Agent J in Men in Black, human beings are just animals, or mobs are just animals. They can't comprehend, they can't grasp the full truth. So we have to treat them as they were children. We have to manipulate them. We have to keep everything a secret. So that's the thing that both Colman Domingo and, on the other hand, Colin Firth are trying to do. I mean, Colman Domingo is trying to get the truth out there, yes, but it's a manipulated truth in a different light, in a religious light. He thinks that there is a prophecy that will be unfolding before his eyes. That's why he's building this house. And we are seeing this throughout the whole movie in various shots, because he is waiting for Emily Blunt and for Josh O'Connor to reunite one with each other in order for the prophecy to be unfolded, as I said. Now, both of them, as I said, are assholes. One criticism that people have, if you talk about the means through which this prophecy or this truth or this issue or news will be delivered, one of the criticisms they have towards Spielberg is basically the mean. They say that he is basically an old guy and he has an old mentality. Why do you rely so much on television when we have social media? Well, basically, first off, because whenever you introduce social media in a movie, you just ruin it, which is the same thing that they did with Scream, I think, from the 6th and so on. And whenever you introduce certain gadgets or advanced technology, you will ruin the mood of the movie. And you will ruin the vibes that Spielberg tries to create and have been trying, to recreate throughout his whole filmography. So that's the first issue. Secondly, we have been criticizing all the time television as if we didn't grow up with television, as if we didn't watch movies, DVDs, VHS, Back to the Future, The Grinch, the 9/11 news, the Princess Diana death news, and everything. This is related to, what shaped our reality and the way we think. We grew up, and our upbringing is we are shaped by television, as I said. However, we just hate television nowadays. We criticize it harshly. Why? Because we have another substitute, which is social media. However, social media is not something that we can be free whenever we talk about expressing our opinions, because people love hating each other, love criticizing each other harshly, and love to hate each other. This is something that we have on social media. Yeah, but it's free. Well, to a certain degree. With television, you can't have the same freedom of quoting you or blocking you or insulting you. Yeah, okay, you have this. However, I think we need television right now, because social media is nothing but sewers. That's what it is right now, and I hate it. That's why I think we should get back to television. It's the only place where we can do some changes. And this is why governments try to block certain channels, try to block certain programs, and try to manipulate the truth in there, especially in the US, with all these channels that many governments, not only this administration, but I'm talking about the previous administrations as well, they try as much as they can to manipulate the truth on television, despite people believing that, well, television doesn't matter anymore. Well, it matters. If it didn't matter, then governments and administrations wouldn't care about it, but they do care. They do care. So television matters. And we can rely on it later on, especially when AI and the AI dilemma situation gets worse than it is. It's actually bad, but it will get worse. Trust me. And that's why we have to rely on television, and we keep it for, a year or a decade later on. Aside from this, as a final point, I will be talking about the directing itself. What I love about directing in here is the use of the light and the shifting between the yellow or orange light. And on the other hand, we have the blue light, which alludes or makes some reference to the blue light that we have on our phones nowadays. And now we use another protection, which is the yellow or orange light, in order to protect our sight, especially if we use our phone nowadays. We are using it every single day. If we are using it like 5 or 6 hours per day for either for our job or maybe because we love scrolling on WhatsApp or on Twitter right now. So we have to protect our sight. That's why I think it's an interesting point to associate this blue light. And I think David Koepp, the screenwriter in here, is associating this blue light to Colin Firth and to the villain words, but also to our phones. On the other hand, if you look especially at these two characters, Josh Brolin Josh O'Connor and Emily Blunt, we have another light which makes somehow way to the nostalgic era, the one that we grew up with, which is also the one that Spielberg contributed at creating. So we have the yellow light, on the other hand, we have the blue light. Also, I love the pans, the circle pans around each character. This is the 360, around every single character, which many people criticized because they thought he was trying to emulate or to repeat what Alfonso Cuarón tried to do in one of his movies, Children's Man. But actually, that's not true. Whenever you do like a 360 around the character, it's basically create a full circle. A circle means that you are trying to put, or to give some importance to the person or the object that is within the boundaries of that circle. If I circle something, either in a book or if I'm teaching or I'm doing a lesson as a professor or whatever, if I'm doing a circle and I'm circling something, that means that I'm giving some importance to that word or to that concept, or in this case, to these characters. What matters at the end of the day are not the news or the aliens. As I said before, this is something that has been talked about on various occasions. What matters at the end of the day are human beings and the way they interact with each other. And if they torture aliens, this is something that does not have to do with aliens, it has to do with us as human beings. With communication, as I said before, the way we communicate with each other and the way we perceive truth, the way we see each other in relation to the universe. That's why we need the language of mathematics and so forth. So we are the focus of this movie. Again, he didn't add anything that we can consider to be different than any other movie that he did or any other director that he did. But I think it's quite fruitful to watch this kind of movies nowadays when we lack our humanity with all these war zones, what's happening in Gaza and everywhere. So we need this kind of movies, even if we consider them to be redundant. See you.